Order number 7, statements.
Senator Newton. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to a request for statement on the exploitation of water resources in Murang'a County. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the exploitation of water resources in Murang'a County by Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company. In the statement, the committee should, 1, give the status of the Northern Collector Tunnel project, indicating the stipulated time for its completion, the construction status so far, and the expected date of launch. 2, provide the expected daily average water production capacity of the Northern Collector Tunnel project to Nairobi City County and neighboring counties, indicating how much water in cubic meters to be channeled to the residents of Murang'a County. 3, provide the current daily average water production capacity of the Dakaine Dam to Nairobi City County and neighboring counties, specifying the average water supply in cubic meters channeled to Murang'a County. And 4, spell out the strategic interventions put in place by the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation to ensure residents of Murang'a County get access to water from Dakaine Dam, which is a major water resource endowed to the county. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohammed Chute. Are you holding brief for Senator? Very well. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So I'm holding brief for Senator Chute. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 51-3 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy regarding the status of oil exploration in Turkana. In the statement, the committee should, 1, apprise the Senate on the status of the oil exploration and extraction in Turkana since the discovery of the oil field in 2012, stating the companies involved in the exploration and the extraction. 2, state the current crude oil price of each barrel and the current value in Kenya shillings of the commercially viable oil reserves. And 3, state the cumulative quantity of oil that has been produced so far and the projection of oil exploration and extraction in project in the next 10 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Geoffrey Osotsi. The statement is deferred. Senator Samson Cherange.
Mr. Speaker, sir, request for statement on scholarships on education programs between counties in Kenya and academic institutions outside the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding scholarships on education programs between county governments and academic institutions outside the country. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate on the exact number of scholarships on education programs currently in place, guaranteed by county governments and managed by academic institutions outside the country, disclosing the terms and conditions of such scholarships. Mr. Speaker, number 2, find out whether the Ministry of Education has a policy framework guiding counties in engaging with educational institutions abroad. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, sir, state the measures the Ministry of Education is instituting in facilitating students currently facing termination of their academic programs and repatriation from Finland, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, let me take that one. State measures the Ministry of Education is instituting in facilitating students currently facing termination of their academic programs and repatriation from Finland due to non-payment of fees occasioned by withdrawal of their fees held in trust accounts. And finally, Mr. Speaker, outline the measures the Ministry of Education has put in place, if any, to streamline the terms and conditions of these scholarships occasioned by rising cases of students being airlifted to study in various academic institutions abroad on scholarships guaranteed by county governments across the country, outlining measures to safeguard parents from being swindled, Mr. Speaker. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I can see the Senator of Siaya, Senator Oburu Odinga, is in the House, and there is a Simeo rally in Siaya. I hope all is well, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ojenda. Senator Ojenda, I can see you on the queue.
Yes, Mr.
Proceed.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to the statement by learned friend Cherargei, Senator Cherargei, Senator for Nandi. Eldred, Nandi, yes. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I mention that this question of students being repatriated from Finland on account of scholarships that seem not to have been well managed by the Uasin Gishu County is a matter of concern to the national, it's a matter of concern to the nation, because, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have watched this unfolding event in the last weeks, and it's embarrassing to the education system, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, my understanding of this question is that when counties get to the arena of education to sponsor students, there often must be a framework contract. I assume that what the Uasin Gishu County ought to have done was to have an engagement that was definitive in terms, so that students moving to Finland would know the extent of the fees that would be covered by the scholarship, so that we do not have the scenarios that we are witnessing in the last weeks, where poor parents who contributed to the scholarships of their sons and daughters, presuming that the scholarship contribution would take care of the entire study period, come back and lament in public, blaming the past administration for mismanaging scholarships, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am alive to the fact that the ESCC is already investigating this question, and therefore I'm sure that that will be dealt with. But I think the question we must deal with here, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to what extent where devolved functions are performed by counties, to what extent should counties go to sponsor education to students?
Senator Lamu County, you can consult, yes, but kindly do not in any way disrupt. We need to hear the senator who is contributing. So kindly consult in law.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, a lesson should be learned by counties and governors who float scholarships for the benefit of their constituents, and even senators, that you must define the parameters of the scholarship so that we do not have the public coming back to file complaints at the county. And I think that is the case of Uasin Gishu. Perhaps, Mr. Speaker, sir, the problem here is that the framework of the scholarship and the extent to which the scholarship was defined was not known by the recipients of the scholarships. And that is why even the question of accounts being mismanaged is not clear, Mr. Speaker, sir. We urge our governors to study Schedule 4 of the Constitution and to know what powers or what functions are devolved and what functions they can perform. I know that in terms of education, early childhood education or lower primary education is what is devolved. But the higher levels of education, Mr. Speaker, sir, and the new framework that we know that there's reform within the sector resides in the national government and not the county government. We pray, Mr. Speaker, sir, and this applies to all governors, that governors should put their acts together, function within the law, do not go into areas that you cannot afford or areas where the people you serve ill understand the processes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Cheptumo.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support the statement by the Nandi County Senator. And Mr. Speaker, if you read the statement, it is regarding scholarship in the education sector between counties in Kenya and academic institutions outside the country. Mr. Speaker, though I agree with my colleague, classmate, Senator, Senior Counsel Ochenda, about the devolvement of education to the ECDs, and then for the primary, secondary, and university is not devolved. But, Mr. Speaker, where a county government, as a matter of policy, allocates resources in the account and support a specific education program to take students in their counties to universities abroad in a very clear program, specific with the university, the scholarship amount, and it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, I think that is still allowed. I think, Mr. Speaker, where the problem is where it is not clear, as said by the other member, the extent of these scholarships, Mr. Speaker. Counties are supplementing also to support the national government in advancing education. So, Mr. Speaker, I think what we need to insist on is that any county that intends to sponsor a scholarship program for their students should be able to be clear whether the scholarship is full or for 1 year or for 2 years, and so on, so that it becomes clear to the parents, Mr. Speaker. I really want to support that counties should be able to support education sector, though it is not evolved. Just like, Mr. Speaker, the matters of insecurity. It is true, insecurity, Mr. Speaker, security is not yet evolved to the county governments. But, Mr. Speaker, just like education, security is a problem that is affecting the citizens of a county. And where we have a county government ready to support the national government in advancing security matters, it is still welcome, Mr. Speaker. For example, in Baringo and other areas, Mr. Speaker, we have the NPRs, the National Police Service, the young people employed in those counties to help the police in the security matters, where the county governments are able to provide some salary, some stipends, Mr. Speaker, say 5,000, 10,000, in addition to what the government is giving. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with this statement by Gerard K., but to say that counties must be clear to the parents of those students who are supposed to provide scholarship, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, there's even a bigger problem on these matters of scholarships. Most of our friendly countries, Mr. Speaker, they are in, say, Japan, Britain, and other countries, Mr. Speaker. They give a lot of scholarships to our country. And I think, Mr. Speaker, there should be an affirmative action even for that program. Those officers in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Speaker, tend to allocate those positions to their members from their counties. I think there should be a policy If there is a scholarship from Britain, for example, with 10 scholarships, 20 scholarships should be spread across the county, Mr. Speaker, counties that we have. And when we have another country giving scholarships, the same thing should apply. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree that there is need to look at the entire aspect of scholarship in our country, not only with regard to counties, but even in the Ministry of Education, so that we have that fairness for our own country. I support, Mr. Speaker, the statement.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue. Very serious. A few weeks ago, I was in the city of Eldoret, and this was a matter that was active and in public domain. Mr. Speaker, this statement should go further, because we are not talking about millions of students. We are not even talking about hundreds of thousands of students, just a number of students. There should be an audit for every county government to establish any existence of such a children, so that we know the circumstances under the children were taken out. A record be given to this House showing the account that were opened, so as to be allowing monies to be deposited in those accounts for purposes of paying for these school fees, Mr. Speaker. And what's more, Mr. Speaker, the report should also tell us who are the signatories of those accounts. When I talk about public domain, Mr. Speaker, I was hearing things including signatories of those accounts, honorable senators, have bought property, they have bought, including land and vehicles, money that was meant to pay schools for these children. I'm sure the governors who might have been behind this noble idea didn't know that they were opening an avenue for swindling of public funds. And then finally, since we shall be having the list, we would like the statement to confirm that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, purely on humanitarian grounds, is going to take up these children with arrears so that they are taken back to complete their courses. Mr. Speaker, some of the children were taken to undergo courses in law, in medicine, in engineering. They were diverted from local universities where they would have been sponsored for free. So this is a major scandal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Seki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this statement from the Senator of Nandi, Senator Charangei, on this matter of scholarship of students across the country. I believe this is not just an issue for Uasin Gishu County, but this is a matter that touches all counties in Kenya. Knowing that almost every county government and even national government has allocated an amount for scholarship and even bursaries to benefit the students of this country, and in particular, the issue of counties bringing up the fund for bursary fund to their own people. This is a matter that this statement will come to try to conclude this matter, and even look at how counties have given out and allocated these bursaries and even scholarship to students in their own counties. This is a matter that is very much, it is in the hands of this country to get to understand and to I want to know the transparency, because we believe this is where there is a lot of scam in counties. We understand that those people who benefit from these scholarships are not supposed to be benefit, that those who are supposed to benefit, but they're not getting it. And this is an area where now this statement through the committee, which I am a member, will look at it and get to address this issue and report back to what is happening in the country. I believe issues of scholarship, there is no transparency. I know it has never been there. And this is the time we believe that we will bring this issue to this house to get to understand what is happening. But I want to say, I believe that what has been happening, even in Finland and all other countries, probably from the Uasin Gishu County, maybe it has been a good motive. There was a good idea on this, because Finland has a very good educational systems. So I think this is a good idea, probably, but I think there is a process that we want to go and investigate to see what is happening. But I believe that the committee that will look at this matter will go over or beyond the borders to see that these things have been put in rest. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Guru.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank the Senator of Nandi, my friend, for bringing out this matter, because matter of education, Mr. Speaker, has been a very, very central matter even during the struggle for independence of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was the airlift of Tom Mboya in the 50s and the early 60s. And Mr. Speaker, there were also airlifts of Jaramogi, my father, taking people to the eastern countries when there was a Cold War. But Mr. Speaker, normally when there is a good thing, there are people who are corrupt and who take advantage. And they take advantage of a good thing, and because they know it is good, there is enthusiasm, there is interest, and people are ready even to commit their resources to support the good and noble causes. And when people produce their resources, then some people now find a way of swindling. So I think it is not something to be stopped. It is not something where we really need to investigate how to stop it, but it is something which we need to investigate with a way to encouraging it and ridding it of any corruption. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very important matter, because education never ends. Even me now, I'm on the almost reaching the 8th floor of my life, but I'm still pursuing education. I want people to learn, and there is no limit to acquiring knowledge, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Cherigay, my brother, also said I should be in Siaya, but Mr. Speaker, I want to inform him that I'm there with my head, my eyes, my body. The whole of it is there. It is only my body, which you see here. But because of health reasons, I'm not there. Mr. Speaker, I support this, and we urge the committee to investigate and find out and make conclusions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kinyua.
Bwana Spika, nataka kushukuru kwa kunipa fursa hii, na nimshukuru Senator Cherargei kwa kuleta swala hili nyeti la mambo ya udhamini wa wanafunzi. Bwana Spika, udhamini wa wanafunzi umekuwa ni jambo nzuri sana, lakini wale ambao ni wakora wanachukua fursa ile kujinufaisha wenyewe, kwa sababu wanajua wanafunzi wengi, Bwana Spika, hawana uwezo. Ukiwatajia udhamini ni watu ambao wanataka masomo, lakini kwa sababu ya ukosefu wa hela, Bwana Spika, wanachanga, kunafanywa mchango. Unapata hata wale ambao wanaishi katika maisha uchochole, Bwana Spika, wanafanya harambe kusudi waweze kupata ule udhamini na kupeleka watoto wao waweze kupata masomo. Bwana Spika, kamati ambayo itashughulikia inapaswa ilete mwangaza zaidi, watu wajue serikali ama wizara ya elimu ni hatua zipi ambayo inachukua kusudi wa Kenya wawache kulagawiwa wakiwa wanatafuta huu udhamini, Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu Wakenya wanataka masomo, Bwana Spika, na wamejua ya kwamba watapata masomo ya kiwango cha juu pengine wakienda katika nchi za uraibuni, Bwana Spika. Na Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ya ule umaskini, mtu yeyote ambaye anasema atawadhamini wanafunzi, watu watauza mbuzi, watauza kuku kwa minajili ya kupata ule udhamini, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo kamati, Bwana Spika, ambayo itapatiwa hili jukumu, isiangalie tu sehemu hiyo ya Uasin Gishu, isiangalie tu taarifa iliyoletwa, Bwana Spika, iangazie hayo mambo kwa kindani, ndio waweze kuleta suluhu la kudumu, Bwana Spika. Tusiwe kila wakati tunaongea kuhusu hili jambo, kwa sababu, Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ya ule ufukara wananchi walionao, ndio wanaweza kuhadaiwa, Bwana Spika, na hawa walagai ambao wanachukua kila fursa iliyoko, Bwana Spika. Si fursa ya kuajiri watu, Bwana Spika, si fursa kama hii ya wanafunzi wanatafuta udhamini, ni fursa yoyote ambao walagai wanaona ambapo watu wanachechemkia jambo lile, nao walagai wanachukua fursa hile kuwalagai wananchi wa Kenya. Bwana Spika, naunga mkono na ningeomba kamati ambayo ishughulikie kwa kindani na waweze kutupatia suluhu la kudumu, Bwana Spika. Nashukuru.
Senator Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to support this concern because I'm one of the young people initially. Before joining this Senate, I had severally been applying for scholarships in anticipation for being shortlisted so that I'm able to pursue further studies in my area of interest. So I surely understand when Senator Cherargei wants this issue to be looked at, because we know very well, in as much as we keep saying that we are Kenyans first, sometimes this allocation of scholarships have been marred with issues of even nepotizing them, in that people from specific areas are given priority, while people from other areas are disadvantaged. I think it's time we also need a report on beneficiaries of these scholarships, because the intention is you give people scholarships, go study, come and enrich our country. So to this extent, we need a report on Kenyan students who have benefited from the scholarships, so that we also make recommendations on what we think are the scholarships assisting our countries and children so far, or it's an avenue for the more privileged to continue benefiting from these processes, as the rightfully needed people to have these scholarships are missing out. Secondly, education is the only other avenue that you can actually compete fairly. So when we are already disadvantaging other people by actually stealing from them and making them poorer, then we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot. We cannot be saying that we want to support education and at the same time leave that critical sector to such kind of people to con poor, desperate young people who want to go to other countries to get better education at the expense of their parents who have nothing other than take loans, sell their land, sell their only cows left to support these children. So in as much as we have those issues, I want to support what Senator Cherargei is saying and insist that it is time the ministry and the counties give a report on beneficiaries of these scholarships so far. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sige.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Education is one of the basic rights that the Constitution of Kenya protects. It is in this house that we are able to speak the way we are speaking. Without education, we, Mr. Speaker, could not have been in this house. We could not have been able to understand what is supposed to be done. We could not have been able to change the society that we are attempting to change. We cannot overemphasize the importance of education. And therefore, when we speak about supporting education, the most vulnerable society or members of the society to conmanship are the people who desire to be supported. The most vulnerable are the young ones, the poor, the have-nots. And when we take advantage of such situation, we are worsening their future. We are worsening the health of those who support them, who expects them to come and support them in future. We are killing an entire generation, because if we lose an entire 50 plus children or students, we have lost a generation. They say, Mr. Speaker, where I come from, when you educate a child, by the time he or she is out of school and have been employed and earning a salary, that child does not belong to that family. He or she belongs to the society. Where we have opportunities of scholarships, the best that an administration, a leadership, or a government can do is to ensure that it shows fairness across the board. It goes out of its way to also utilize such resources to support and not to kill the future of the children or of the parents who have gone out of their way to search for and avail resources to support. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, say that the motion, or rather the petition that has been brought forward by the Honorable Senator from Nandi, is something that cuts across every person in this country. It cuts across the rich and the poor, the young and the old. And therefore, I want to have my voice in it and say we should seek to obtain reports of the beneficiaries, the procedures within which such beneficiaries are normally selected, and also a follow-up as to the level of the abuse or good use of such opportunities by the relevant agencies of government and institutions that are involved. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, support the motion. Thank you.
Senator Maruma, you may proceed to seek your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to request these statements. There are 3 statements. The first one is a statement by the residents of Vikanga, whose land was encroached by Kenya Airports Authority. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Order 53, Standing Order 53.1, to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources concerning the residents of Vikanga whose land was encroached by the Kenya Airports Authority. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state whether there was involvement of the landowners of Vikanga pursuant to Article 232(1)(d) of the Constitution before their land was acquired by the Kenya Airports Authority to pave way for the expansion of the Vikanga airstrip. Number 2, provide a list of residents who lost their land as a result of this expansion of Vikanga airstrip. And 3, explain reasons for the inordinate delay in compensation of the landowners and whether there are any plans to compensate them as provided for by Article 43B of the Constitution and Section 111 of the Land Act 2012, giving timelines within which such compensation, if any, will be availed. That is the first statement, Mr. Speaker. The second one is on the county boundary cut line between Taita Taveta County and 3 of its neighbors. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations concerning the county boundary cut line between Taita Taveta County and its 3 neighbors. In the statement, the committee should, 1, give the exact boundary points and geographic coordinates between Taita Taveta County and Makueni, Kwale, and Kajiado counties. Number 2, table documentary evidence of a boundary resolution agreement alleged to have been signed by the county governments of Taita Taveta and Kajiado on 4th July 2020. And 3, state whether the governors of the two counties altered any boundaries and whether the provisions of Article 188 of the Constitution were taken into consideration. The third one, Mr. Speaker, is on delayed payment of pension to retired Kenya Railways Corporation employees. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the delayed payment of pension to retired Kenya Railways Corporation employees. In the statement, the committee should, 1, determine the cause of the inordinate delay in payment of pension to the retired employees of the Kenya Railways Corporation. Number 2, state specific timelines, the steps being taken by Kenya Railways to conclusively address the issue of stopped monthly pension payment that is now running in arrears. 3, outline the measures the ministry has put in place, if any, to ensure that the retirees receive their pension as and when it falls due in order to save the pensioners from pecuniary embarrassment. Mr. Speaker, these two statements on compensation by Kenya Airports Authority on Nikanga airstrip and this statement about Kenya Railways Corporation employees was derived from the exit reports of these committees on labor and on lands. They were already there in the 12th Parliament and they're in the exit committees, and we had agreed that the only way to reactivate them then is by way of statements. This issue of Kenya Railways Corporation has been in the Committee for Labor, where I was Vice Chair in the last committee, and they started paying. And then we had agreed that they liquidate some of the assets which are in the upward of 20 billion. They have not been able to do that, and that's why we have these a pension falling into arrears. I know the Committee of Labor will look at this issue at depth so that these people who are suffering, who have worked very hard for Kenya Railways Corporation, can get their arrears. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheptumo.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to comment on the second statement by Senator Maruma. Mr. Speaker, I represented Baringo North as a member of parliament, and during my time, Mr. Speaker, I received a lot of cases of retirees, those in teachers, the police, and other civil servants, Mr. Speaker. And their main complaint is delayed remittance of their pension. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a serious challenge in our country. The one up before us today is about Kenya Railways. But, Mr. Speaker, I think there's a problem in the Department of Pensions. Because, Mr. Speaker, the government has the data of retiring employees, and they know a time frame, they know the time they're going to retire, and they know the dues payable at that point in time. I can't understand, Mr. Speaker, the delay in payment of retirement benefits to retired civil servants. Mr. Speaker, remember, these are Kenyans who have spent all their time in serving our country, either in the armed forces or as teachers or in other departments. And Mr. Speaker, after retiring and they are not paid, they live very miserable life, Mr. Speaker. I think this is a time in this House has the means and the capacity, Mr. Speaker, to rise up and demand that the Department of Pension, Mr. Speaker, should not subject further more Kenyans to this suffering after retiring, Mr. Speaker, because this is not something that is not known to the government, Mr. Speaker. Look at the teachers, for example. For them to pay, retired teachers or any other civil servant, to pay their fees for their children, to meet their day-to-day demands and so on, Mr. Speaker, it really exposes our Kenyan people in a very, very difficult situation after retirement. So I want to support this, and I want to request the committee in charge that they need now to even call upon the Director of Pensions to appear before the committee to explain why they are unable to meet these very serious obligations, which they already knew from the word go that is payable. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to comment on two statements that have been brought forward to the House by the Senator of Taita Taveta. The first one, Mr. Speaker, is about the delayed payment of pensions to the retired Railways Corporation employees. Mr. Speaker, as a country, I keep wondering why we demean our senior citizens. Because, Mr. Speaker, if it's not about non-payment of pension to teachers, then we have non-payment of pensions to KRA employees and to other sectors. Mr. Speaker, all of us are growing older, and all of us will need some upkeep as we grow up that has been invested in our working years. And Mr. Speaker, it is painful that people who are now older, who don't have the energy to work, who cannot now go looking for income from elsewhere because of their age, are the people who, as a country, we are denying their rightful payment. Mr. Speaker, when some of us were growing up, Kenya Railways was one of the places all of us aspired or to work in. A number of people around us were working at Kenya Railways, and we saw that they were living a nice work. They had houses that had been built for them. And I guessed as they worked, their families believed that the upkeep would keep on through the investment that the older people were making. Mr. Speaker, I stand to say that this matter should be looked into. It also pains me that as Senator Mwaruma has mentioned, it is an issue that has been before the House, even in the last Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, with your guidance, we want this matter to be dealt with once and for all. And Mr. Speaker, before I sit down, let me also add my voice to the next statement that is about the county boundary outline between Taita County and its three neighbors. Mr. Speaker, all I wanted to put before you is that as the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations discuss this issue, I would pray that the Lands Committee is also brought on board. Mr. Speaker, I say this because boundary issues are issues of survey. It is survey that has the mandate to determine boundaries, and so it would be important that if lands is included, then the survey would also be brought in to deal with the issue of boundary issues once and for all. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because in the past I've seen boundary issues dealt with the Security Committee, and Mr. Speaker, the security comes in just to deal with the security issues that arise out of the conflict of boundaries. But primarily, if boundary issues are to be solved, Mr. Speaker, then the Lands Committee has to be involved. Mr. Speaker, I support the statement.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm one of the neighbors in dispute with the boundary with the Taita Taveta. And Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Kenya fixes the boundaries as of the districts of 1992, and there is also a law which used to exist dealing with the provinces as then. And as that matter was, between ourselves and Taita Taveta, we have even taken this matter to the Council of Governors and still together with witnesses, and it was not resolved there. But I believe between myself and the Senator, the great Senator of Taita Taveta, we can sort it out because it's a matter of public notoriety, a matter of fact, and a matter of law. And clearly, Mutituan Day is in Makueni, and the border is at Savo River. And even the current administration, the OCS for Mutituan Day, originates their jurisdiction from Savo River. The one who deals with the railway starts their jurisdiction from Savo River. And it has been the practice all the years. And even when the late President Kenyatta, the founding father of the nation, used to travel on road to Mombasa, they used to, the PC of cost, used
What is
to
your
pick.
point of order, Senator Maruma?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator, my friend Daniel Manzo, Senator Makueni, to mislead this parliament that the boundary between Taita Taveta and Makueni is in Savo River? Yet we know we have a polling station by IEBC in Mtitwandei, Mr. Speaker. Is he in order to mislead this House?
Senator Maruma, those are matters that you should leave to the committee that we're going to commit this statement to. Those are the ones who will tell us whether Tsavo River is indeed the boundary or the other boundaries. You did well by bringing this to, by seeking this statement from the standing committee. I believe at that time you'll be calling witnesses from both